Hi, my name is Candace Griffith, and I have been working on the 4-week training block for the 21-year-old soccer player who is who is about 2 months out from the tournament qualifiers. So for this particular training block, it focused on maximal strength. And there were different aspects to consider. One is the split. So for this split, I chose the upper-lower body split because doing so allowed ample time for recovery between the upper body and the lower body before the next part of the body had to participate or had to train. And I also chose that particular split because you get to focus on each section of the body and developing each part evenly. So because sometimes women tend to have more developed on their lower body compared to their upper body. So having that specific focus will help minimize those differences between the upper and lower. The next aspect was the set and rep scheme. This athlete is wanting to increase her maximal strength, and so that set and rep scheme that I chose to focus on, we started with sets of 4 and reps that went from 4 to 6, which encompasses the maximal strength aspect. And we progressed it as the 4 weeks went on. So for example, for week 1, it was 4 sets of either 4 to 6 reps, and then the following week we kept the sets and reps the same, but we increased the intensity. So for example, the back squat increased from 85% of the 1 rep max to 87% of the 1 rep max. And the reps in reserve, for the ones that you can't calculate, the 1 RM4, it went from 2 reps in reserve down to just 1 rep in reserve. Then for week 3, what we did was we increased the sets and decreased the number of reps, and we maintained the intensity, and that progressed it from week 2 to week 3. And then for week 4, we increased the intensity as well. So from week 3 to week 4, for the back squat, it went from 87% intensity to 90%. For the other movements, we went from two reps in reserves down to 1 rep in reserve. So that was one aspect of it. And then also we chose for the exercise selection, we made sure to not include any type of exercises with overhead aspects, since the player had experienced injury and had trouble with any movement that regarded her going overhead. So we subbed those particular movements with things such as the TRX chest pull and the incline bench press. Also, exercises were incorporated on the various motion planes or movement planes. So when they're in motion on the field, training them can help them move in all aspects and all areas, and just have them well-rounded and well-developed. Also, we chose exercises that improve sprinting and running. So examples of those specifically were the front squat, the forward step lunge, the step up, and the leg extension. For change of direction or cutting and agility, the exercise of the back squat does improve that particular aspect of sports performance, and the reason why is that it includes an eccentric base motion, which is lengthening the muscle, lengthening the hamstring as the player goes down into that back squatting motion. And that is the type of motion that change of direction or the ability type movements incorporate. So we chose that specifically for those movements. For the ball kicking skills, we chose movements such as unilateral hip adduction and hip abduction. We have the leg extension, the leg raise, and the forward step lunge. Also, we incorporated movements that increased range of motion and mobility, and these include the deficit Romanian deadlift, the deficit alternating forward step lunge, and also the single leg squat with an elevated heel. You'll also see that there are some unilateral movements that are in there. Unilateral meaning one side, These include the hip adduction, the hip abduction, and the leg extension, and these transfer to sports play since the unilateral or one-sided occurs mainly in sports than the bilateral or the two-sided, and so that can help improve sports performance and reduce the risk of injury. You'll also see for these 4 weeks, she also has another 4 weeks after this, and these movements can transfer and transition to that next training block to incorporate more power-based movements, so such as the box step to a box jump. She also can incorporate more Olympic-based movements as well, but it's important to note that these movements will need to be moved up to the beginning of each day in order to ensure that there's no fatigue when she completes these movements.